Evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Warren Planning Board. We do have a quorum. If the members would just say their names, starting with our newest member, by the way, and congratulations and welcome and commiserations, maybe. The Jenny Flanagan is our newest planning board member.
Hi.
Ashley Medeiros.
Tyler Dixon.
Fred Massey.
Mike Gerhart.
Great. The agenda was amended. The Liberty Street will be continued to our next month's meeting. The staff was unable to review the application for completeness prior to this meeting. I know that the folks who are with Liberty Street are here. I can give you 3 minutes, but to speak to this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Attorney Bruce Cox on behalf of Liberty Street Partners. We're a year into this program on an expedited application. I'm asking that we've had the joy of having telephone poles catch on fire, which was nobody's fault in December. We then had a January 3rd meeting, and we haven't got the decision yet, to have my knowledge, finalized by this board unless it's incorporated within your minutes at this juncture. The decision that was from a January 3rd hearing. You're proposing moving us to March 25. We'd ask that we get a special meeting somewhere between now and then so that we can move this matter forward, because this matter we've had the joy of a record keeping 5 TRCs. We were caught between the town's changing planners, which was not the town's fault, it's just a fact of life. But in fairness to this applicant, this needs to be moved forward. It seems to be stalled. And I'm not sure why it's stalled, but it seems to be stalled. It has that we have a special meeting. The submission was not that complex. It was thorough. So we have a master plan approval. We have some confusion going on here, but I'd like to ask for a special meeting to have this matter heard on a preliminary basis.
I'd have to,
Mr. Chair, what I would recommend at this point is not respond to Mr. Cox. His request is noted, and I would certainly, once the town believes the application is complete, Mr. Cox will be notified that it's complete. In fact, at that point, if the board wishes to do a special meeting, we can do it certainly to expedite the process for the applicant. But at this point, I would just say Mr. Cox's his representations are definitely noted, and we certainly will entertain a special meeting if the members are able to do it, and we have a certification of completeness by the town that we will certainly discuss with the board members if they're up to doing a special meeting to expedite the process for the applicant.
would we have that discussion at the end of the meeting? I don't.
The issue is this, that we don't. The town's position is that the application is not complete. Therefore, we can't comment as to a date or commit to a date until we have a certificate saying it's complete for notice purposes. Once we received it, the town responds, it's completed, gets a certificate of completeness. At that point, the planner can certainly reach out to the planning board member saying we have achieved completeness. It's on the record, and this is the earliest we can do a special meeting and kind of just do a question.
I mean, I understand what you're saying.
Yes,
Attorney
and the second,
Cox, and I know that you folks have been through, because I've been through with you. It's not been. This isn't something that's and I appreciate the work that you've done in terms of working with us and where we're going. Given that, I can't move forward and the board cannot move forward without the certificate of completeness from the town. That being said, I would certainly be open should there be really not, I mean, I think we were well along on this process, so it would seem to me that this could be something that could be handled relatively quickly once we have the certificate of completeness, given that, you know, we would certainly be open to the idea of a special meeting. So let me, you know, as Ben indicated, we'll take it under advisement with the idea that we would, you know, we would be open to that if the certificate of completeness comes in relatively soon. You know, there are issues with posting the meeting through the Times Gazette and that kind of thing. So and I'm sympathetic. We're not, you know, I don't feel like at any point this board has extended this process unreasonably. We have been, you know, in the immortal words of Curly, we're victims of circumstance here that is just almost unbelievable. I mean, particularly in terms of the TRCs. But that said, we will do our best to accommodate it.
And then my second element is the decision from the January 3rd meeting. Has that been reviewed by the board? Is that part of your minutes?
I would assume that that would be part of it. We don't have
a draft decision has been provided to the solicitor. The solicitor office provides the ultimate written decision for your consideration. So at least as of tonight, I don't have that written decision yet to provide to the board for its ratification, but the applicant is aware that we've allowed typically what happens is one application doesn't come in until the appellate period is over for another, but we're allowing the preliminary plan in the door, but the applicant is on notice that it's at their risk should there be an appeal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next order of business. Thank you. Next order of business is the approval of minutes from January 22nd. Were there any changes to be made on those? They were, okay. So I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Second, Mike Gerhard, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Also to approve the meeting minutes from February 12th. No changes on those as well. So we will make a motion to approve those minutes. And need a second. Tyler, all in favor? Aye. On to the applications.
Mr. Chairman, do I need to abstain since I wasn't a member of the board at that time? So
Yeah.
I've abstained from both those votes.
Okay, so Jenny would need to abstain and Ashley for the most recent 212. Thanks. The application for 75 Crode Street LLC, Plat 8, Lot 32, Clark Westcott, 12-unit residential master plan comprehensive permit. We did have a technical review committee meeting for this application, and the planner has provided the background to that. We will discuss those elements. At that meeting, we had the director of the Department of Public Works, the fire chief, and the building inspector. So
DPW director.
I did, yeah, I
Yeah.
mentioned him.
Okay.
So we had a fairly in-depth view of this thing. There were some thoughts that we had in terms of conditions that we would like to see placed upon it, which we can discuss after you've done your presentation. So floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Durfee, members of the board. Nice to see you all again. My name is Brett Yadley. I'm with Chase Ruttenberg and Friedman in Providence. I'm here on behalf of the applicant 75 Croad Street. Here to present, as the chair said, are the master plan conceptual overview for the project, which is a comprehensive permit as set forth in the application. The project will involve 12 units that include 3 two-bedroom affordable units and 9 two-bedroom market rate units. All of the units will have 1.5 bathrooms. The applicant submitted its application over the course of January, received the certificate of completeness on February 6th, 2024. And as the chair stated, a TRC meeting was held. We are in receipt of the staff report / TRC comments and report. A number of comments and suggestions are made in that report, and the development team is certainly open to discussing that with the board tonight, and responding to those comments in preparation for the preliminary meeting that will follow the master plan conditional approval if it's so approved. We have a brief presentation tonight, an overview of the project, so let's get right into that. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Duhamel. Mr. Duhamel has over 35 years of experience as an engineer and land surveying professional. Mr. Duhamel is a Rhode Island professional engineer. He holds a Master of Civil Engineering from the University of Rhode Island and has been qualified as an expert for numerous other boards and commissions, and I believe this one as well. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Duhamel's exhibit and offer him as an expert in civil engineering and design.
And we should make a motion to accept him as an expert.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Mr.
May I approach, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I have copies
Yeah,
to
no
hand out.
Thank you. Mr. Duhamel was also at the technical review committee meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. Good to
Again,
see
Chris
you.
Duhamel with Dupree Engineering. I'm a professional engineer and a professional land surveyor. And I'm here to go over the submitted master plan of 75 Broad Street. The property is located on Assessors Plat 8, Lot 32, is 26,645 square feet. The property is zone manufacturing. What we're proposing is a comprehensive permit to allow for residential condominiums conforming to the all RIDM and town regulations, with the exception of waivers, which I will go over. We have a survey, a Class 1 survey prepared by Waterman Engineering, who's set the corners. We have utilities surveyed for sewer, for water, for gas that exist at the frontage of Broad Street. We have our biologist at Dupree Engineering has evaluated the wetlands within the area, and we've determined that there are no wetlands on the property or no buffers, wetland buffers on the property. There's also a notation that the natural heritage area has a potential for being on the site, and we've done research that shows that there's no protected species that would affect any development of this property. The site has a FEMA floodplain, an AE zone, elevation 13 on the site. The majority of the grades on site are from 8 to 10, and there's a small section at the southwest corner that is outside of the floodplain. So the majority of this development will be within the floodplain, and we'll design accordingly. The soils on site are not they're not agricultural soils, which might cause an issue or a question. They're all urban soils. Groundwater tables are fairly deep, 24 and 32 inches in depth, which would allow for drainage to be constructed on site. So with that existing site conditions, we could go to what is proposed. We're proposing to utilize to redesign to residential condominiums. We worked with Ben Wojcik is the architect on this property. We have proposed 12 units, 3 different buildings, with 4 plexes. Of the 12 units, 3 of the units would be reserved for workforce housing. That's LMI, low moderate income housing. 1 unit would be located within each building. The buildings would be serviced by municipal sewer, municipal water, and gas service brought onto the site. The proposed driveway onto the site is 20 foot in width. It's been designed with the requirements of the fire chief, Chief Souza, to have a be able to traverse on the site with a Warren fire truck, 37-foot fire truck, and be able to make a T-turn to leave the site. So that's pretty much how this driveway is designed. Parking on the site is 2 spaces per unit. There's going to be a 10-foot by 18-foot parking stall in front of the garage, and the garage itself would be counted as a parking spot. So we provide for two spaces per unit, provide for off-street parking. Trash would be roll-offs within the garage. There won't be a need for a centralized trash container. Drainage for the road would be designed as pervious pavement to accommodate any increase in runoff. It would be stored underneath the roadway and infiltrated into the soils. And the roof leaders would have dry wells that would be sized for the 100-year storm. We've provided for areas, the TRC had asked for locating areas for snow storage, which we'll highlight at the preliminary plan stage. TRC has asked for the lighting design to be shielded down. We'll certainly incorporate that. So with that said, I've covered all the site design considerations.
We'd also at the TRC mentioned the idea of moving the water lines to allow for easier access and for repairs. The water lines as they exist now are in the middle of the road, and should there be a need to go in and replace a valve, that would require you to tear up the only access and egress from these units. So by moving the water line over to the side of the road, actually even off the road, you can put the street shutoffs to each of those units in places that would be more easily accessible, and in case of repairs would not require you to tear up the roads. So that was something that I think would be a condition to consider. Again, you know, it would save the folks there the aggravation of not being able to get in or get out if something goes wrong. And as the chairman of the Twisted Point Water Trust, I know the issues that are associated with access ports and when a valve goes wrong. So
We'll certainly work with the Bristol County Water and DPW and the planning board to make certain that all the conditions are met.
I think also the DPW director had noted that there's a street light that will need to be moved, most likely to allow no obstructions to getting in and out of. Brian had mentioned the fact that he felt that where the street light is now, it might need to go over, you know, a few feet, but that would require, I believe, not, you know, Rhode Island Energy to step in, and he would work with them.
Being a comprehensive permit, there'll be waivers needed in order to achieve this residential housing. And I've submitted a letter that identified what waivers and variances would be needed, that the planning board has the authority to act on. I could go through those now.
I have a question on the trash before you go to that.
Oh, sure.
Does this design allow for the trash truck to enter? And if it does, does it have room to maneuver to back to get out?
It does. It would be this, we would prove it out through the truck turning movements, but it would be a vehicle smaller than a 37-foot fire
They
truck.
will not have, but they won't have town pickup
Oh,
of their trash. This is.
It's private.
my
Oh, it's
understanding.
private.
I should have mentioned that. It is-
okay.
Actually, he said that there was a central area. What's the town's policy? It says here that the DPW protocols have changed so that there's not trash pickup. Is that true for all developments?
As new developments are coming in the door, correct, the policy's changed where we're not, Brian is not doing a new development curbside pickup from that standpoint. So that's been consistent with the Penny Lane project and the Liberty, also the Liberty Street from that standpoint. So in this particular case, the TRC, we chatted about centralized, and the applicant asked as part of the TRC, well, would it be okay if we did private pickup, but still individual curbside? And that's so they have a roll off that goes in the garage as a, for instance. So, and that's fine with us.
So the no pickup policy has been approved by the town council? Or is that a DPW initiative?
For that's, I can't answer that question. I do know that that was something that the director was implementing prior to my employ. So if there was a process that it needed to go through, I'm only assuming was done ahead of time. But that's what I've inherited as the planner.
So we still haven't shown on this, so the trash will be in each individual garage, is that correct?
Yes,
And then rolled out and private company will pick it up.
yes, they'll roll their trash receptacles outside of the garage and put them on the corner for pickup. And then the ordinance that was brought to my attention at the TRC, bring the trash receptacle back into the garage within 24 hours will be part of the homeowners association requirements.
Thank you.
One other element that we talked about was screening. The side of the development that would face, I don't know if you have if we can, make that picture bigger so we can see where we were talking about is, I believe, on the western side.
Sure, the building C?
No, I believe it was over building A and building B.
Residential.
Yeah, that's residential.
Yeah, and so the screening was a piece of building C.
We talked about that, but then believe on the other side, it's kind of an industrial looking
The south
parking
side?
lot on the, yeah, further over. Yeah, but you're not seeing it at the corners of A and B.
Okay,
Parking for the middle area back in there.
Yeah, see, there's the parking area there. What we're looking at is, because this is going into an industrial area, what we'd like to do is to make it as least industrial as possible. So by putting in screening, you're creating, in essence, a kind of oasis in that area. So that's really what we're looking at, the use of arborvitae, the feathery kind, not the deer, the ones that the deer like to eat. And as an example, we're not, saying you've got to use that, but it's the building inspector also felt that it would be important to kind of create a sense of community because it is going in an industrial area, and that's granted through the comprehensive permit.
I have the answer to the question about a waste disposal. It's currently monitored, and it looks like it goes back either to 1990 or 2005. The town will only provide municipal solid waste disposal services structures containing less than 5 residential units. They could petition the town council, but that's the limit.
So the limit is anything more than 5.
They can petition, correct? It's just no, but they still can't petition the town council.
Thank you.
So the waivers and variances I had put within a letter to the town, dated February 9th. And to quickly go through them, it would be to allow residential use within a manufacturing district, to allow for the dimensional setbacks to be waived for all buildings A, B, and C, front yard and side yard and rear yard.
How much? Like the setbacks?
I'm sorry?
How much are the setbacks?
They're 30 feet currently, and we're reducing the setbacks
30. This is
30 feet front yard setback, 30 feet side yard setback, and is it 50-foot rear yard setback?
On all sides?
40-foot rear yard, I'm sorry. So that we are asking for reductions of 5 to 5 feet on the east, to 5 feet on the west, and 36 feet to the rear yard setback to building C, and the front yard, I believe, is, oh boy. You have it? Yeah, the front yard,
I think it's like.
Thank you.
Can you check the math on adjustment number 3?
front yard is 11.9 feet. Adjustment 3, I'm sorry?
Right, just check the math. It doesn't seem to follow the same format as the 2 prior ones. Or I don't know where the 5.2 feet came from. It's the-
5.2 is the distance from the overhang to the westerly boundary. That was corrected by
Oh, yeah.
by Herb. When I first submitted, I didn't go.
If you look at the stop moving.
Well, 13.9 has. 13.9 has to be
5.2
wrong,
right
and
there.
5.2 has
You
to be-
can see there's an overhang. That's what he's referring to. There it is, right there.
And what is that?
It's a
The format's confusing just because it's either the 13.9 is wrong or the 5.2 is wrong. To make that, to agree with the other formats.
Yeah, the setback is gonna be from that overhang. It's not from the foundation of the building. So they've, at least they took.
confusing then-
Doing,
it's
but
confusing then to
but
read
they'll
number 3.
recheck.
yeah.
Right, I think
Definitely.
a point to make for the planning board, well, just for a second, Mr. Chairman, is that for purposes of the waivers, you've got the waivers that they're requesting. Tonight, you would not be approving the waivers. They're in there, but because you're not in a public hearing yet, from that standpoint, due to the new law for comprehensive permits, you would not be making any formal waiver approvals tonight from that. That'll occur at your next stage.
Preliminary.
Correct. And since there's stony silence for a second,
And I've got a question.
the comprehensive permit changed such that master plan is no longer a formal stage of the permitting process. The applicant and I agreed mutually that rather than having the applicant front load all the costs related to engineering and everything, that we're allowing them an opportunity to still do a master plan before you, to have some of this preliminary discussion, so that when they do the heavy lifting of engineering and site plan mock-up, that they'll have some of your input as well as our input along.
I have a question. On the boundary and topographic survey plan, which is page 81 of our, I'm sorry, page, I don't know what page this is, sorry, I can't read it. 76 of our package. It shows a lot area of 26,645 square feet.
Yes.
Which is different than what you have in your narrative. You have a little bit less than that in your narrative. You have 26,005 something.
Okay. We'll make that correction.
I mean, it's in the right direction, so.
Get a little bit more room. So I'll make that. So again, we're at a conceptual plan. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to the planning board, even though state law has admitted this, as Herb has said, it's really to our benefit to get whatever feedback.
I also have one other question.
Sure.
If I may. Warren is, as we all know, going to be prone to the impacts of sea level rise. There are recommendations, but no requirements at this time to incorporate those concerns into designs and plans. But I'm asking whether or not you've looked at that and whether that's been taken into consideration.
Yes, the impacts of sea level rise are an increasing flood elevation, and what we would propose is to have a minimum of 1 foot of freeboard above the FEMA elevation 13. So the lowest structural member of the building would be at elevation 14. But we could look at that with the architects to to even
The design
increase.
recommendations now, in order to also incorporate a 100-year storm, would actually be substantially more than that, and at least 2 feet. So I'm just,
Okay. Well, certainly.
I
Put that in
put it out there for
consideration.
consideration, with the affordable housing requirements, that these be at least 30-year deed restrictions, 30 years from now. There's a fair probability that there's going to be impacts, and if nothing else, from a state investment in this affordable housing and the town community investment in that affordable housing component. I'd like to see those property owners at least having some protection.
Mr.
Well
Chairman,
taken, right on point.
There are, because the project will be in the AE FEMA zoning district, there are particular building codes that they'll have to meet that come under our building code and are essentially required by FEMA because of the nature of the designation.
Which is a minimum, and FEMA is backwards looking, and the.
I understand. I'm just saying that they'll at least have to meet those
Right.
minimum specifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments, concerns, questions?
Out of the 400 new state laws that is there anything that we should know, I think, based on the affordability and what is allowed by right before we kind of go into anything? Is there anything that we should be considering on top of this? As what is in the new state laws and what is not?
I think procedurally, as Kurt pointed out, it just eliminates the master plan. In fact, it's just this preliminary plan. In a lot of situations, it'll eliminate the final plan approval that would be designated to town administrator, the town planner. He does have some things by right now that parking has been reduced to 1 parking spot. Per unit density, it's 25%. It's per acre. I'm not sure. It's 5 units per acre. Well, no, I'm sorry. This pertains for you. I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize.
Ed Pimentel, I'm the planner on the project. Right, so the new laws, in order to spur affordable housing development, established base densities, because the biggest hurdle to overcome was the zoning regulations. And what was happening is people were starting at 0.0 and the communities and the public were saying, wow, that seems like such a disparity from our zoning regs. So what they did is they established a set base density based on whether you have the infrastructure, public sewer and water, and then subtracting for land constraints. So subtracting for wetlands, buffers. So first you have to calculate the acreage that's deemed suitable for development. And then based on that is whether you have the infrastructure. So yeah, so the base state we started, and now it's 9 to 12 units per acre. So we're not starting at 0, right? That's why the numbers are looking more appropriate now, because the state law allows you to stop them at least.
And also, we can't put a condition on this,
Density.
we can't put a condition to make it feasible. That's also.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I noticed from the letter that there was a request that they up the number of affordable units from the minimum 3 to more. Would the developer consider that request?
So the only thing is, the issue with that is because it's based on 25% affordability, we'd have to increase the overall density. So we're concerned about overmassing the scaling of the property. That was the
No, I was talking about going from 3 to 4 in the existing 12 units.
well, that comes down to the economics and the pro forma. So that's why you have to get a letter of eligibility first. So you have to show, Rhode Island Housing has to approve it to show that the numbers will work economically. And that's why it's based on the 25% affordability. Or otherwise, you need more units to offset it to make it work from a pro forma perspective. That's the issue at hand. That's why a lot of the developments that I work on that exceed the 25% are all nonprofit based, because you're getting federal funding. That's why you can increase the density, but that's because we don't need the density bonus to offset. But the reality is the private sector, the compromise process is where the majority of affordable housing is coming from. Right, they just passed the legislation to try to get $100 million out there. There just isn't enough federal funding to get dense units, which would help the communities. So we got to rely on the private sector. So it's the offsetting density bonus.
But you see the rationale for the request.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's the biggest problem, right? You're giving 25%. Why can't we give 100%? Right? Why can't we give 50%? I understand.
So
Totally.
does the legislation, there's so much of it that I'm getting confused, but so if you have 100% affordability on all units, you get 12, up to 12 per unit. What do you get at 25?
5 and 8.
5 per acre.
rate.
Okay.
If it's connected to sewage, if it's connected to water.
And you
Right,
will
right,
have
there was
the-
all those different, yeah.
Right, and you don't have the constraints of development.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
And then my other thing is with the other law that talks about adaptive reuse of, would that fall under this with being in manufacturing and units being on the property? It would not, okay,
Yeah, and adaptive reuse is completely outside of affordable housing statute. So we have so many vacant blighted buildings around the state. They said, let's take advantage of the schools and the churches and commercial buildings and give an automatic 15 units in it and get, the state legislation. I was outside the scope of the actual proper land use commission. They were asking my police to. We're trying to spur housing in general because we need it in affordable housing.
So it's also true that you're going to eliminate one building here that has probably 2 affordable.
It's actually unoccupied right now. The building's been unoccupied, but the property owner can speak to that. They've been unoccupied. And that's true. Let's say they were occupied. It is true, we're extinguishing 2, but we're introducing 12 units. And we're introducing new construction. I mean, right now, it's an outdated structure. We're gonna end up with 3 people living in new construction. And by the way, under the law, the market and the affordable have to be of like materials and size and scale and massive. And that's why they gotta be properly dispersed, right? This is workforce housing.
Right.
Right? In Jamestown, police and school teachers can't even leave. East Greenwich, I just did one 2 months ago. The average monthly income in East Greenwich is $5,500 a payment for an average home. So it's just getting out of control.
and so you're looking at that 80 to 120% of the,
But once again, I would refer to as to what was presented.
So I have one other question, which may go to the owner, which is, what do you expect these to sell for, both the affordable units and the?
I wasn't
market
involved in
rate?
the preparation of the pro forma, so.
The affordable is,
The affordable units,
State name for the.
I'm Clark Westcott. The affordable units in the letter of eligibility were at 300,334. And the market rate is sort of TBD based on when it's built and where the interest rate is. But in my head, it's somewhere in the 4s.
Thank you.
So it's gonna obviously depend on a lot of factors, when it gets built, what the market's doing, where everything ends up. But that's sort of where I'm aiming to be. And I guess to answer your question, Mike, is I look at this development as, and I think we talked about it, sort of attainable in that 400 range, brand new, not something that you're buying for 400 and something thousand, and then it may work, it may not. You got to put a roof on it, do the kitchen, the heating system's busted. I mean, that's sort of where we're at. So this is brand new. We sort of kept it a little bit smaller so that people can actually afford it and have something that isn't falling apart around them.
What's the square footage of each unit?
1,100 plus the garage.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I would note, Member Gerhardt, that although the changes in the new law eliminated the requirement for the pro forma, the TRC request and the staff report requests that the applicant come to the preliminary plan stage with more information on the pro forma. So we didn't have all that information for this meeting, but we'll develop that and have that information for your benefit at the next.
Thank you.
Yep. We do have a brief presentation for visual.
Oh, I have another question, which is the architecture.
That I'm bringing him up now.
Good, thank you.
So at this time, on that note, I'd like to bring up Ben Wojcik. Mr. Wojcik is a principal at Ed Wojcik Architects. Mr. Wojcik has a Rhode Island licensed architect. Received his Bachelor of Architecture from Rensselaer Polytech Institute. Has appeared before many boards and commissions. At this time, I'd like to offer his resume as an exhibit and ask that he be recognized as an expert in architectural design. And he'll come up and give a brief presentation that will hopefully answer your questions. This might also be.
Thanks.
Chair, we need a motion to accept for field.
I motion.
Could we have a motion to accept as an expert? Okay. Second, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you, board, for the recognition. My name is Benjamin Wojcik. I work at Ed Wojcik Architect. I am part owner of the firm with my father. He was unable to come tonight. He's actually at another hearing in Woonsocket tonight. But I'm familiar with the project and helped out with some of the design phase. So I just thought I'd give a brief presentation. I'm sure you're aware of the overall kind of design and look of it, but just as a refresher in case anyone needs one, there are 3 separate buildings with 4 units each, townhouse style. The ground level is the garage, the entry, and the stairs. The second level is the kitchen and living space, and then the third level are 2 bedrooms and the bathroom. The buildings are pretty straightforward for townhouse style. Again, that's so that they're treated like individual houses. The townhouse divides them for fire safety. Typical siding, gable roof, front entry, single car garage. And I think it fits the context of kind of the site, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have to the best of my ability.
The construction of the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Jim.
You don't have an elevation of the rear side?
Not currently, no. That's still being worked on in the design.
Where are the mechanicals?
I would have to discuss with
Where are the
the owner.
mechanicals kept?
Yeah, boiler.
External HVAC.
I know there's a closet in there now, more mechanical. I've got exactly how we're gonna place.
Oh, yeah, I see it behind it.
We've allocated space, but obviously we don't
Closet, but not for that, of everything yet.
know the size of the equipment yet, so.
A lot of stuff in storage.
The material for the outside,
I assume it would be maybe vinyl siding with like a thin brick veneer on the ground floor. That's what we're representing here, but again, that will be discussions with the owner as we move forward.
I'd recommend you put in 220, 240 outlet, 50 amps in each garage for EV use. At the time of building, I'm just recommending.
Yeah, understood.
On the ground floor elevation, there's a dashed line on the rear of the building. What does that represent?
That represents kind of the second floor overhang.
Because it doesn't correspond to what the second floor overhang actually looks like.
Yes, understood.
Okay, that will get cleaned up.
Yes, of
Thank you.
course.
And there's no provisions for any back decks, patios, or anything like that.
No, not at this.
So there's a back door going out of the storage on the ground level. And the rear of many of these units, well, 4 of the units will be 5 feet from the property line. So, is there any anticipation of what that space is likely to be used at or as, or?
You mean the space behind or
Yeah,
the storage
The
space?
exterior space.
I wouldn't be able to state what
Okay.
the residents would use it for, but
We can preliminary probably talk about the conditions for the condominium association, you know, in terms of, one of the things that came up at the TRC was the shared green space. You know, how that could be used and also to ensure that those areas are policed. Penny Lane, for instance, which is not like this, obviously, but has conditions in terms of what the renters in that case, but in this case, the owners would have to follow on. We have a development in another part of the town where folks were not aware of what they were responsible for, you know, in terms of what can I have in my yard, you know, where can I put a grill? And those are the kinds of things that I think would be very important because it can come back to the town. In this other development, off to Wissett Road, the town is getting a lot of complaints because the condominium association wasn't specific in terms of lighting and who takes, you know, the conditions that are expected. So that would be something that we would look for.
Speaking of lighting, there will be a preliminary lighting plan? Are you going to have street lights throughout the development?
We're not doing streetlights, but we will have a lighting plan. That was, that's the TRC as well, the specifications.
All downlighted
Yeah.
and shielded.
correct.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Just one administrative matter, since Mr. Pimentel testified, I'd like to have him come up here and I'd like to have him recognized as an expert in planning. Mr. Pimentel is one of the state's leading experts on planning and planning design. Why don't you describe your education and experience while I
Sure.
pass it up?
So I've been a municipal planner, continuous planner for almost 35 years now, Florida, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. I've owned my own consulting firm for 25 years. I've been for all 39 cities and towns and all the superior courts and then throughout southeastern Mass. I've done zoning amendments, comprehensive plan amendments. I also am continuously a municipal planner, zoning official as we speak. And I would say probably 50 to 75% of my consulting is affordable housing. I think there's so much demand. I keep getting calls for projects. I have to say, it's interesting because there is so much demand and you have to weigh the concerns of the community versus the project. I've gotten away from the big projects that are starting to consume and exhaust the land resources, which we're trying to preserve, right? The farmlands and the rural areas. I concentrate on infill development now. It's where the infrastructure is. It's where we want to densify. I just did one in downtown Westerly, downtown Central. I could go downtown East Greenwich was the one I just spoke to. I concentrate on that. We've learned that's where the infrastructure is. That's where the services are. We're trying to create a safe and pedestrian environment. And by the way, it helps the commercial services to thrive and survive. So That is 100% of what I do now is downtown infill development, appropriate scale. That's what I do.
I'll make a motion to accept Mr. Pimentel as an expert witness. Second, Tyler, all in favor? Aye. Mr. Pimentel, just one of the problems that we're running into here with this comprehensive permit, and this is not a case of it, but is that it is a town by town 10%, which, first of all, the 10%, no one seems to know where that figure came from. Also, on a statewide basis, there are many infill possibilities for affordable housing. And these are apparently not coming into the equation. I mean, a place like Providence or Pawtucket, Seekonk, have Seekonk obviously being outside of it, but there are these gigantic empty movie theaters, malls that are perfectly established with the kind of infrastructure that you're talking about. So I would ask you, as someone who is involved in this, to beseech the legislature to think about the fact that affordable housing should not be placed equally on 10 towns with very unique structures, but in fact should be a statewide project, which would then allow for that kind of affordable housing that we're looking for, and in fact probably get better funding than to try and shoehorn it into places, particularly like Warren, where we have very limited space. This is a good use of an area that would ordinarily not be used for housing, but we are going to be increasingly looking at open space or farmland or that did not have that kind of infrastructure.
Yeah, I think the problem has been because the initial statute came out in the early 1990s. And between the early 1990s and 2004, developers used it as a windfall profit. I mean, they were 1,000, 2,000% because they were using it. So then in 2004, as everybody knows, when they amended the statute, because the municipalities went up to the state and said, look, we understand our needs. So we want to be put forth a plan with strategies for how we feel will address our own local needs. So from 2004, here we are 20 years. It was supposed to be a 20 to 25-year game plan, but a lot of municipalities and most municipalities have lost affordable housing, so they haven't made the progress. And now it's even gotten worse. So I think this latest round was to actually try to accommodate that. Yeah, the 10% rule is still there because I guess they figured you have to have some skin in the game. But I think this latest one really kind of addresses, Mr. Chairman, because obviously the urban areas are going to have more of the adaptive reuse buildings, right? The rural areas, they only have so much buildings that are ready to be used. Infrastructure. If you have constrained land, you have limited density per acreage versus if you have more suitable land acreage, which would be the more urban environments. So I think this is a step in that right direction to try to spur affordable housing to where it can be accommodated at greater density.
But again, and the 10%, this is, it's almost like shared carbon credits. If you've got a town, and our town has plenty of affordable housing, it's just not by right.
Understood.
So, this is an issue that we're facing, and, pardon me for using.
No, and you know what's interesting? The same 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 communities always go back and says, we've done our fair share, and by the way, we don't mind, right? Obviously, if you're familiar with these problems, where I also work on a day basis, right? We just got the Taunton Avenue one, right? That's going to be 120 something units. We just did it across from City Hall, another 30 units. So we started to realize, wow, we're providing a lot of housing, but it's all market rate. So we got to start offsetting. So we started to dip below the 10. We were always over the 10. So we want to do our fair share. We want to put it where the infrastructure is and the bus routes and everything. But we're always the ones saying, why are we the ones always caught up? And I don't want to mention communities, but it really is to try to tell those particular communities, and Warren's not included in this, guys, you got to start giving a little bit of your own fair share. And I think that's why the 10% cap is still maintained. Because it's kind of difficult to say, you've got 8, he's got 7, because by state law, you got to have a consistent number, So
the problem is that somebody can come in and, I mean, this is an example. You've got 12 units, 3 of which are affordable. That, in fact, increases our distance away from the 10% because there's more units that are market rate than there are. So as good as this, I mean, this is a good project, it's sound, but the problem is that it perpetuates the problem. And so that, to me, it's sort of like, it's in kindergarten. If I don't hear who made that noise, everybody's staying after school, It's one of the reasons I became a teacher for a while, because,
Well,
I
but
was the noisemaker.
so it comes down to the economics. That's why we need more funding. I mean, hopefully this $100 million will help to address a lot of the concerns you just expressed.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
I have to go back. The floor plans don't show washer dryer for each unit. Is indeed there a washer dryer space for each unit?
I'd like to do, I think the mechanical closet is flex space right now. I think I could put it there on the second floor, there's a closet next to the study, that's a similar size. So, it's not fully designed yet, but that,
It's just a nuisance as a resident. You're buying this property and you don't have a place to.
there absolutely will be laundry on site.
Good.
Yeah, and
It just
noted,
hasn't been decided exactly which of those closets will house
Okay.
mechanical versus, a stackable.
Okay.
and we'll have that answer at once preliminary plan stage.
So a quick question. I noticed there's a detailed traffic study that you've done. Why did you see the need to do that? I mean, it doesn't seem that traffic is necessarily a high priority problem.
I agree with you.
I think that's what the traffic analysis demonstrates, but there is the statute does still require
It does.
the traffic analysis.
Does the statute require a traffic study?
Yeah.
It's a nature land development.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't see them very often of that magnitude. Thank you.
One last question, the things like a boiler or the heating, cooling units, water heater, can they be down in the garage? They can't, they have to be above the flood,
They could be in the garage, but they would have to be mounted.
above
Depending on their size, where the elevation set up.
Have you thought about, are you talking about splits here, or?
If I had to guess right now, we could be a ducted system from the attic down to both floors,
Oh, okay,
and then a wall mounted water heater, one of the closets, and a panel somewhere that makes sense.
okay. Thank you.
Sure, that rounds out our presentation. I think as you all saw from our submittals, Mr. Pimentel submitted a detailed report that hit on the topics of the comprehensive plan, the required findings in the low and moderate income statute, the affordable housing statute, and the Article 1727 of the town zoning ordinance. And we also submitted the traffic study through Mr. Paul Bannon of Crossman Engineering. So with that, I think given the posture of the master plan meeting, we'd like to get whatever level of approval or recommendation you can offer.
Well, I think at this point, you have to come before us with a preliminary plan.
Yes,
So we're treating this sort of like a pre-application, so as opposed to a master plan where I think we would give you approval, we're not going to do that. I mean, not that we don't think it's a great idea.
My biggest concern is the public hearing aspect of this, and given any type of approval, even preliminary, officially, would maybe violate some type of public, meeting act, possibly. So I think individually you could give, you're in favor of it, all leaning this way versus a motion and, a formal motion. I think that's better at this point.
I think if, you've heard some of our concerns, which are, all seem pretty reasonable and not onerous to me in terms of meeting those, in fact, actually helpful in terms of, the development. So,
Mr. Chair, maybe I would ask any board members if they had any issues or against anything, but make that public, so at least they're aware. I think that's what we need here, more specifically.
Can I ask a question just briefly about the 4 units that will be having driveways on Broad Street? That street on occasion can have a lot of truck traffic related to the mill property across the street, going to the parking lot to the rear. So has there been any thought about not having those curb cuts on Croab, but rather having them into only off of the new road in the project?
We worked with the architect, Wojcik Architecture, to create a community within this property to have a courtyard area.
Okay.
And initially, we had all the buildings on the courtyard. But because of fire truck turning movements, we had to
You had to have
realign the
speed,
driveway, but
I think we also talked about no parking signs.
yeah, the TRC was.
So that, that would be posted on
We talked
Broad.
about it basically at the entryway, but I think after discussion, we understood that that's really a town function from that standpoint, and it would have to deal with the ordinance. And any designation of Crow Street is no parking or what have you. The reason why I had raised it was just because I do know, as you can see up there, that it is used for parking along there. And it probably won't be used for parking in the future for a length of Crow Street. But I was just trying to factor in to minimize any sneaky parking along the apron part of that, if there would be signs required. And that's, again, it's really more a town function with the council and the ordinance, but we can more formally look at it as part of the preliminary plan.
And again, you can request that through the town council, and I think,
And when you say you have 2 parking spaces per unit, does that include the garage?
Yeah.
It does.
Okay, so 1 interior and 1 exterior.
Yes.
So I'll be interested to see the architecture, the elevations of the front and rear with some specification as to the materials. We're interested, it's not technically part of our responsibility, but the aesthetics are not unimportant and probably not unimportant to the respective owners either.
I'd be interested in seeing which units are being specified for the affordable units. Are they interior or end?
They're interior and they were starred 3, 7, and 9.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I missed that. And go ahead. I did have another question, but when you provide the elevations, can we get a total project elevation as well? Say what it would look like looking in at the 3 buildings from the street with the driveway in?
And obviously you're gonna put a landscape plan together so that we can see what that will look like.
Yeah, for now, here we are. Right now it shows plantings. Those are all new trees with the red dots. I think that's
the current
where we end up.
landscape plan.
I don't know if we'll provide any, we plan to provide like elevations of any of that.
Yeah,
Maybe
you
an
can.
overview if there's gonna, but as of right now, I'm thinking about the existing trees, take your buffering comments into consideration for sure.
Oh.
But interior, the remaining tree and then green space, grasses, what I've been leaning towards for lot for maintenance purposes. Like we talked about with the other condo complexes, it's easier for someone to come in and as long as the streetscape and the buffer is what it should be. Lower fewer gardens to maintain, things that can sort of be dealt with more easily and be basically all usable yard space. So minimalist landscape plan.
Yeah.
Would be my preference, and maybe there's something in the condo docs about if you plant something, you can take care of it, but I think the more plants.
Well, again, it's kind of like that shared space. You want
Yeah.
to, sort of protect it like the town green, No,
Large,
I mean,
I'm sure.
ideally to be a place where people could get together.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it
all
could
I'm looking at.
be a
Flex
real
space, not.
plus
not
to the-
mulch and
Right.
And so you're pretty much looking at what I would consider my landscaping plan now.
Yeah,
And those are the reasons why it looks that way.
okay. Anything else? All right, well, you know, as long as you can get this in, are we talking about March here or?
Oh, you're actually, given the Liberty Street discussion, you're gonna ask me that.
Yes.
So if we, you know, there are a number of applications before us, preliminary plan will come in. I mean, they've clearly done a fair amount of work already in this. They know they need to pay attention to the checklist. They're planning on having maybe a sit down or at least a phone call with me with regard to the staff report and addressing any of the issues that are in there in advance of submitting their preliminary. But you know, just for purposes of edification, I have 60 days in which to deem an application complete. I try as best as I can to get it done as soon as possible with, you know, I'm not one that hangs it out. But I am busy.
Okay,
We have utility permitting that we need to go through, water, sewer, stormwater, so that'll take.
So one quick question, we haven't talked about wastewater drainage at all. There'll be a drainage plan as well with,
There will, pervious pavement for the driveway, dry wells for the roof leaders, that would all be permitted through DEM, UIC permitting, and wastewater would be town. We have will serve letters for water, for sewer,
so
that indicates that we don't have an issue as much, but we have to go through the calculations and prove it
yeah,
out.
so we've got time. We're not,
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you. Maybe not next month.
they have a lot of work to do.
No, I know. It's gonna be.
Oh, wait, next month.
Okay, the next item of business is, Commercial Way, Plat 23. Can we, clear the room, please? Thank you. Next item is, 0 and 6 Commercial Way, Plat 23, Lot 118, 119, and 120. Commercial Way Properties LLC, pre-application for development plan review, major land development. Recommendation to the zoning board to request a special use permit to allow a childcare facility, general automotive repair facility, and office units with related storage in the commercial industrial zoning district. I've been informed that this is a pre-application. There was previously an application for this land. This is that expired after a 2-year approval. This is a brand new design and a new application. So what we're looking at here is a pre-app. So, Scott?
Everybody left.
Yeah, really.
And Mr. Chairman, just for clarity on the agenda and the record, based on further insight from the town solicitor's office, you'll just be dealing with a pre-application for master plan. If the next stage will be master plan and then the development plan review, but tonight is just the pre-application. You're not going to be dealing with any zoning matter or recommendation of zoning. So just I think, Scott, I don't know if you got the message ahead of time, but I know that the solicitor and the applicant's attorney talked. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear for the record and the agenda.
It was, it sounded to me as though through this process, the zoning board is not going to be involved. This is going to be, we're sitting as the zoning board.
Correct. So this town always had the unified, not always, but last 5 years, something, the unified development, basically the board had authority to issue dimensional variance change the law now, not only gives you that, still authority, everybody across the state now is required to have it, but also gives you this, authority to issue special use permits. Therefore, everything's gonna be handled in-house and by new members.
Okay,
Yes, stays here.
great. So, Scott?
Good afternoon, Scott
We
Lucivero.
get paid extra for
I'm one of
that?
the partners on the property. So
Double pay?
if you take a look at the plan, the original plan that the board saw had 4 buildings originally that was approved. So we've combined the C building, there you go. So that was the original approval. Since that approval, some things have changed and it's got elapsed, but we're trying to retain a business in the town of Warren. They're called ITS. They have a letter of intent signed. They would like to have a larger building on the property and sign a multi-year lease and stay in town. So that's why we combined the last 2 buildings and created C building to look like that. So that's pretty much the only change.
No, but there's a childcare facility and then this automotive repair maintenance.
So the automotive repair maintenance is ITS. They do,
Right.
so all the police car sirens and, the upfits for police vehicles and for fire truck apparatuses.
Childcare facility, is that an
That's-
existing business?
That's a separate matter. That's in building A. That has nothing to do with this current, change that we've made.
That's the existing building.
That's the existing building.
Hmm.
And just for your edification, Mr. Chair, you can see the business next door is also automotive related.
Okay,
So the
And-
childcare is already there. That's what, okay.
the childcare is already there. There's a for lease sign out there?
That's an old picture.
This is an old, yes.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say,
That was,
That's-
This is where the other buildings would go.
Yeah, that's old.
There.
Okay,
that's flat.
so the childcare is not part of your development?
It is part of our development.
You own that building?
Yes, we own that building, yes.
Okay,
so we're just
It's
adding.
building A is the childcare,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
okay.
Building A. So the matter we're speaking about is building B and C, really building B and C. And building C will be housing ITS, which is.
And building B is what?
Building B, they may take that building too, because they're really growing in size, so,
Either C or B is there, right?
correct,
Okay,
And you will be adding parking in front of A, is that correct?
correct. Yeah, that picture that the planner brought up, is a pretty old picture. That's an old one.
That's what threw me off because I knew that there was
There
already.
you go.
childcare.
That's the current situation.
okay.
Here's building A.
Yeah.
And you can see it's all been cleared.
I see.
But again, the parking is not yet in front of building A.
Correct.
And there's, what's that's another auto place, or,
No, so that's Lee's building. He stores a lot of cars there and they do some auto repair, but that's not what we're doing, but that's the classification we're under. They store cars, some high-end vehicles in there. They work on them.
It's kind of private garage.
Used to be Choice Collision. I don't know if you remember Choice Collision.
yeah,
So to be clear, the building on the right-hand side is there, that's the
Correct.
daycare center.
yeah.
Then there's a vacant lot where you
Correct.
propose to build one building that is not
Two
necessarily
buildings.
2 buildings.
2 buildings.
Mhm.
One for tradesmen.
Yes, yes.
And the other one for this auto repair.
ITS, yes.
I got it.
This is all gonna be paved? The parking,
Yes.
what's the pervious cover? How much, what percentage of the site? Sorry, I missed that.
That should be in the plan review
Okay.
package. I don't know off the top of my head.
Is the child care there by right then?
There might be a special use permit at some point that they obtained.
They did.
They
I
do,
remember
yeah.
reading that. That's where I was confused because I knew that there was a childcare center in that area, but everything else around it is industrial manufacturing, right? Kind of all the other businesses around there. It's in a,
There is another daycare. There's actually.
There's
There is another one
There's
across
another
the
big thing
street.
like
Okay, that-
across the
There's
street.
another one across the street.
yeah.
That's the one that I was familiar with.
The one
Okay.
across the street is, and then there's Tony Seafood in the middle, and then Tony Amandi, which has a production business
Yes. So
across from the vacant lot. and then MS Walker, who does the
Up in the
bike
top
distribution.
is the daycare.
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah, okay.
And those are allowed within industrial areas by special use
I
permit?
believe that's what the
Yes.
application said without
Yeah.
double checking, I would say yes.
Yes.
Okay. You know, the thing that I'd be concerned about, Scott, here is just shielding that daycare from the car repair and maintenance area. In other words, you know,
It won't be, like the car repair maintenance is gonna be on the other side of,
Right.
it's gonna be like 2 buildings away.
If you could bring up the, no, the one with the 3 buildings on it, please. Okay, so C building is 40, 80, 100,
That's the car
about
maintenance.
200 feet
right,
away
but
from
then
A
B
building.
would
B
be,
trades units
but he might be interested
for
in that,
storage.
is that-
Yeah, for storage. So we're, so this business isn't car repair. I know it's kind of classified as it, but they're police cruisers, fire apparatus, which a fire truck, and possibly some rescue vehicles. Brand new from the dealership. They bring them to the facility, they bring them in the garage, and they letter them. Warren Police Department, we just got a new one in town. If you've noticed, the Suburban came from there. They do the lighting, they get all the insides ready for their work. That's what they do. It's an extremely clean, low impact, quiet business.
Oh, okay.
Is it on the other side of?
Yes,
Market
it's on
Street?
Market Street now.
It's when you drive down Market and you see all
So-
the police cars in the.
So how we found, how I found them was they were looking to move out of Warren, and I caught wind of it. So I approached a former lieutenant of ours who is now working there. And I asked him what the deal was, and he says, well, we need more space. Our landlord is currently we're not in a lease, and we may be thrown out, and we're looking for somewhere else to go. We don't want to leave Warren, but we may have to. I says, well, there we go. I'd like to keep you there.
Yeah, no, that,
Great business, and that's where this all came about. And we revisited the site, myself and my partner, revisited the site, and here we are today. So that's kind of where we're at.
okay.
So when it says auto repair, I think we have to put it under that classification in order to get this approval, but it really isn't like wrench turning, dirty, oily. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. I mean, you can walk in there and eat off the floors. It's really a clean facility. No painting, no spraying,
Oh.
nothing like that.
Okay, yeah.
It's
Oh, that's
nothing like
helpful.
that.
So one question I have is, so it's essentially one full development, all 3 buildings.
Yes.
With like, you know, access through, around building B, all the way around through, as far as driving around, right?
Correct.
So, and then would the buildings aesthetically look the same? I'm not that concerned necessarily with whether they are not. I'm just curious, as far as with the one being existing, is it gonna be modified to sort of?
It will
resemble
eventually,
Italian?
it will eventually, but so we're proposing 2 steel structures with ICP panels on the side, which are thick foam panels that are covered with steel.
Right.
They're actually pretty nice looking panels. So that's kind of what the structures are gonna be. Very similar to the park itself, what's in the park, including the daycare across the street. Very similar structure. Eventually, we would like to rehab the A building and facade to match.
Is there a playground area for that childcare center? Or-
Yeah, so to the right of A, that green space will be considered a play area. They're not gonna have any cemented in structures or anything of that nature. It's more of a corral for kids.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
Corral for kids, baby.
It's good.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Oh, yeah, you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know,
highly regulates these, so we, you know what I mean?
The
If
state, the
they're
states,
okay with
yeah,
it,
the state's all over it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's-
I mean, like they tell them how high fences have to be, the
Yeah.
ability to put a daycare somewhere there on top of it, they inspect it all the time, so if they're okay, and I did see a letter, then,
Yeah, I saw it.
and I think in looking at surrounding areas, what they're proposing.
yeah, I
is
mean, I'm
very
just looking at the trucks and or what, the boats over there or whatever the hell it is, you know, and it's
Yeah.
just, you know, if.
There's
you want-
a high fence there. Mr.
Yeah, that's,
Sorry.
as long as you've got it shielded
Separate
from
property.
the,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
It's actually blocked now. They have it blocked.
Even close.
Oh, it's all, yeah, it's all gated in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Herb, I'm actually not seeing anywhere in this package anything about pervious cover.
No, because you're just in a pre-application.
Okay.
So there's no heavy lifting at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't-
The
Okay.
next stage will be master plan, so it'll be similar to what you just heard.
Okay.
And then the development plan review or the E5 review.
To ensure that you have all of the
Equivalent of a preliminary
infrastructure.
plan, That's what the board detailed.
Okay.
Okay,
However, my opinion is if, you know, when you're looking at coverage and if you're gonna add more density in an area like this is where you want to do it, because then it preserves density in areas that it shouldn't. And so this is consistent and that would be, you know,
Yeah.
that's my.
well, it takes it out of Market Street
Well,
too,
that's
where
what I
you'd
mean,
end up
like-
with a flood, you know, here
Right.
come the nice looking cars, you know, carried on high tide.
Right.
This is, yeah, this is,
This was approved prior. This has been approved, this project prior that we ran.
No, I was just looking at it because I think Jenny could look at this and you could see the coverage at least. with this board.
Okay.
You can See the, right. Just as a. So
Okay,
you get-
I'll just
just a
note that
idea.
there's the
Yeah.
drainage for this project, that the entire Industrial Way and Commerce Way goes into a stormwater retention facility that is not functioning properly, that then exits into a conservation area. And so wherever the drainage can be encapsulated and controlled on site would be of high priority, at least to me.
And that's great. I'm actually complementing that with, working with Wenley,
Ferguson Observatory.
Ferguson with regard to this whole area, in trying to help deal with that and getting some additional structures out there. But he knows he's got to put a drainage plan in as part of the process and but yep.
great. Yeah, I mean, this isn't, Penny Lane.
Thankfully, it's a little different when you're dealing
Or
with
even
residents
Croat Street.
versus, you know, cars. You know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you came before us. It gives it's, you know, understanding what it's going to be used for. The fact that those are all owned by the same owner. You know, there's a need for a sensitivity there, but we went through this, you know, in detail the last time, 2 years ago. And so we know that the infrastructure is there, the services are available. But again, for the purposes of this, it'll have to be restated, so. But I don't see any conditions on this based on a pre-application that I would say, you know, you need to do this. I don't know about, quite often Jim will mention, electric charging stations, and I think that might be something to consider here. I'm certainly hoping that at some point our municipal vehicles start needing electric charging stations. So that'd be something to think about in terms of,
Okay.
you know, those parking areas and also inside the buildings.
And it's the potential for a revenue stream.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
right.
at least not losing that revenue stream is there too.
But that's about all I can think of. Anyone else? Great, all right.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, thanks, Scott.
Have a good
Stay
night.
in the ditch.
All right.
Okay, director's report?
Director's report. This thing. Sorry. So the director's report, essentially just, I gave you a written report. It went out as part of an amended packet. I think you can tell there's a lot going on from that standpoint. If you have any questions on that, let me know. Probably some of the highlights in that were that we've received a couple energy grants, one specifically financially of almost $200,000 that will fund for 2 years our town energy manager. as well as finishing up some weatherization and efficiency improvements at the DPW building complex. And then also technical assistance grant that will it'll help us deal with some asset management issues, energy-wise, energy efficiency-wise. To me, I look at it as like a energy performance contract. So we'll see if some stuff comes out from that. And then we also received another technical assistance grant, for lack of a better term, with regard to dealing with an urban forestry plan and getting some technical assistance to it'll be sort of a trifecta of helping me out planning wise, like with the comp plan and our ordinance, also with the DPW in terms of maintenance and how they deal with urban forestry, and then obviously the town tree warden as well as the tree commission. So that's a pretty cool thing, and the reason why I really highlight that is that we're the only or one of two municipalities only to get that in the entire state of Rhode Island. So you know, kudos to us for being willing to move that forward. And I think did I announce in the last report we did get a grant for Jane Eels Park,
Yeah.
1.25 million. So you know that we did not get the brownfield, but we are moving forward with applying for some money out of the Narragansett Bay watershed program to try to make up that third funding, the third leg of the funding stool for Jane Eels Park, so that we can still keep that at a net zero cost to the town. But if you have any other questions and any other stuff.
What's the status of the comp plan and the meeting with the town
The
council?
comprehensive plan, thank you. Allison is finishing up your last comments. We're gonna have that to go to the council at its March regular meeting.
Oh,
So essentially it'll be presented, meaning given to them. I'm not gonna present it to them that night, but and duly ask for a joint session that night to have that joint meeting that we talked about. So before we start the public hearing process, meaning before we start your public hearing process, I want to make sure the council and the planning board are kind of on the same page. If you're not, in other words, if there's something that council's really having angst over, I want to get that fixed before we go into the public hearing process. I want the public hearing process to be as rubber stamped as possible. I do know that there's one or more planning board members that'll be out of town for a period of time. So what I'm trying to do is at least make sure that we have members that have been here through the whole process, able to make that joint session.
would it help if we communicated to you big holes in the schedule?
Yeah, the easiest for me would be if you sent me an email saying when you couldn't do it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and then I can help do that. So I've received some input from some board members already saying when they can or cannot do something, but yeah, it'd be great if people gave me when they couldn't meet. And I would think about doing that between now and through May, which is a little hard to think about, but it's gonna happen fast.
So we'll send you our
Please,
negative schedule.
yep.
And ideally, I'd hope we could do it around April. I mean, that would be,
I'd love to do it last Tuesday, but.
right, because we do want to get to the public
Yeah, yeah.
hearing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is,
I don't want to be having a lot of time with the council and you folks going back and forth. It's really just saying, you know, if there's something that they really that they're either if they find egregious or something that really is of concern to them, I'd like to be able to address that, but I want to address it at your level. You guys should be the writers of the stuff. I think if they're left to, with all due respect to the council, if they're left to writing sections, they've got too much other stuff that they deal with on their platter. I would rather just hear about it, have you guys draft something to try to adjust that, enter your public hearing process and go on.
So when you give it to the council,
Yep.
you'll send a copy to us, so
Yeah,
we
yeah,
know what was
Right,
given to the
it's
council.
gonna be in their packet, you know, whenever.
For their March
packet goes
meeting.
out, for their
Yeah.
March meeting, and I'll make sure that you guys are copied as well on that. So the presentation that I'll be doing that night is just saying, as you found in your packets, is the plan. So it won't be a a physical handout.
Thank you.
Getting back to the urban forest, I'll say it again, if there's any way we can get DEM to make it easier for us, for the town to put street trees in state roads, I would love that. When I was on the tree commission, I mean, where the most impact from all these urban forest impacts for not having trees is where we have state roads.
The first priority based on, joint conversation with the town tree warden, the DPW director, and I had with a person that's representative through RIDEM and this technical assistance that we got, is that we don't want any more street trees to take care of at this point. We need to figure out our current inventory, what status they're in and what needs to occur to them. As we then may move into additional stuff, looking at canopy tree mapping and that sort of thing, moving toward that complete and green street situation, we'll put stuff in there. As a, for instance, and complementary to what you're saying, as we deal with developments, when street trees are going to be required as part of development, you will find over time that I will not have the street trees in the public right of way.
Okay.
They will be outside of the public right of way because that has the greatest level of survivability. And essentially there's a warranty period that the developer will own in order to make sure that the tree gets, you know, the proper care for a period of time so that the root takes and we can go from there. I'm not saying that's going to happen all the time because in certain situations there may be power lines or other things that preclude it from being, you know, outside of that, but maybe it has to be inside. But I'm a huge I'm not a fan of putting street trees as a, for instance, between the sidewalk and the edge of the roadway. That's just a tree killer from the standpoint, and even that close to the sidewalk, I want it away. And obviously trees that are not going to pick up the sidewalk down.
Your conversation was between you, the warden, and DPW.
So originally, the conversation was.
Was the tree commission involved?
Steve, Chuck.
Chuck.
Right now.
Chuck.
Chuck is
Okay.
the town tree warden.
No.
No, so then it was Steve.
Steve is the tree warden.
Steve is the tree warden with me, DPW director, which is Brian Wheeler.
Yep.
The inclusive in the emails did include Chuck as part of the conversation, the meeting that we had.
Okay, so,
And
but he
it
was,
had-
okay,
They had Molly from this, the vendor that's working for RIDEM, and then a representative.
Okay. Thank you.
The cistern project for Tuisset,
So the cistern project for Tuisset, there's information that went off to USDA, RD, US Department of Agriculture, the RD Department of Rural Development, put out the information that they needed to have preliminarily so that they'll tell me what application has to be filled out. Technically, there is no application that needs to be filled out because it's an earmark, but because of the way the federal government works with earmarks, it has to go through some federal agency. And by the very nature, there's a level of an application that has to be filled out, although it won't hold things up. The only thing is that they haven't got back to me yet in terms of which application to fill out. I suspect it'll be the one that's similar to the one that I had to fill out for the police cruiser, which was about 4 inches thick in terms of paperwork, but hopefully they'll allow me to abridge the application so that we can get further moving on that. Once I have that, I will jump on that application, get it done, so that we can then try to capitalize on whatever it was, $825 or $850.
yeah, it's a significant amount of money, and this
Yeah.
has been,
Yeah.
the fire that stimulated this is now 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, and every summer that passes, it's a threat, so that's the purpose for those cisterns.
Yep, and the first priority is the one that's down near your house, Fred. Probably under the bus, but it is down there because it, with all due respect, it's because it is the furthest away from the fire department. And that's the first priority of where the fire department wants to have a cistern. And then as money and energy goes, there's a couple other locations that the fire department is very interested in. still out in the Twisted area, but obviously a little bit closer, proportionally to.
No, I've had a number of folks say, you know, where is it? So I just want to be able to respond to them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Does somebody have a copy of the agenda? My computer just.
Public comments next and then.
Oh, there we go, yeah. Yeah, so does anyone have anything they would like to say about what they've been hearing? Okay, so the election of officers, I'd like to throw my hat in the ring to remain as chairman if you see fit. I've carried the water for this thing for a number of years, and I don't anticipate staying on for the rest of my life, but certainly right now with the comprehensive plan where it is and the fact that we have a relatively new board, I'd like to stay on as chair for another term.
So I'll move Fred as the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
It's all yours.
Okay. Yeah, that was.
That was hard, right?
Could somebody just throttle me now?
You're soliciting nominations first, and then so that if there is more than one person,
Oh,
then
okay.
you can have
All
a
right.
particular vote. He
I-
tried to act fast, but.
I was gonna say, I don't think anybody was really excited to throw their hat in the ring.
And then vice chair.
I'll nominate Mike Garrett for vice chair.
Okay. Second,
For anybody else interested? Or do you have to just second the nomination?
Yeah, somebody can nominate, second the nominations, then you see if there's any other nominations.
Yeah.
Then you vote.
I'm sorry, who was the nomination?
Mike,
Oh. I can second.
second.
Any other nominations?
Anybody else want to?
I mean, I would be interested in doing it if it's just as an option. I don't know if I could nominate myself, but.
Yeah, I just did.
That's fair.
Right.
Nominate?
Did Fred, you?
Tyler
Yeah,
nominated
yeah.
himself. And I'll second Tyler.
Okay,
So now you go back to the first one. The first nomination.
okay.
Take vote on that.
Mike, those in favor? Okay, two, Tyler, those in favor?
I would vote for Mike.
Oh, you voted for Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we've got 3-3. I don't know what that means.
Wow, we think about it.
Split the deed.
Yeah, so they both,
There's still a way that we do the division, see the ballot.
you see about it.
Where's, Charlie? Oh, okay.
I think she got.
Can we postpone the vice chairman election for next meeting?
Yeah, and you know, I can talk. We'll talk. You wanna talk? And not now, but sometimes because like I want, my mindset is that I think that we have a very harmonious board here, and I would like to, you know, keep that. So,
Yeah, my only thought was, you know, I'd like somebody, the next generation to come up. Not that I don't think Mike would be a good vice chairman, because I do think he would be. Mike's got a good deal of experience.
Yeah, you know, essentially, I've been on the board 10 years. And I've, I think, contributed to a lot of the discussions and do my homework. I'm interested in being the vice chair.
So I think a motion to continue to next month,
Okay,
and I'll have a decision for you whether or not we just do another round of nominations if we have an extra member here, or do we revert to a secret ballot?
yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we need to tell a secret.
Those two chat.
Yeah, yeah. Figure something out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we'll, you know. Okay, next, before I adjourn, next meeting, we anticipate Liberty Street.
I anticipate, yes, Liberty Street.
Sorry, can we just finish that and we'll just continue that?
Oh, sure.
Before we go to the next-
So we make a motion to continue the vice chair election until,
Second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
No, I just wondered what, so that we have something of a preview. Do you anticipate Penny Lane coming in?
Right, so, Penny Lane will come in, but maybe not as quickly. So the, at Liberty Street, I'm still trying to get through administratively. There's also St. Mary's Church that I'm trying to get through for administrative completeness. So those are the two, I think those are the two likely ones that could come in. The Penny Lane, I talked to Frank last week. They may submit their preliminary plan, but I also know that there's still stuff that they're pulling together. So that one is not as immediate in terms of my personal agenda internally. And I'm drawn up, I assume Scott will get something in Scott Construction or Corporation will get something in quickly for master plan with regard to Commercial Way. And I don't know how far along Crowd Street is with regard to any preliminary submittal. Their master plan, as you can see, is pretty complete as it is, but I don't know how far along they are in terms of heavy lifting on engineering plans, detailed specifications and all that.
Sounded like they need some work.
I think they will. I mean, again, we had a mutual understanding to be able to come before you more or less like a master plan, because they wanted to get some input first before they went and did that heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think that there's, I don't mean this crassly, but I don't think there's a lot of rocket science to the engineering that they're going to have for that. I mean, I think the biggest issues will be the drainage, juxtaposed with them, the floodplain that they're in from that standpoint, how they can treat that, but it's a pretty flat parcel, so.
One question I have is, on some of these, that are coming through, where one of my concern or one benefit that could happen is if we can influence the materials that they're using on the exterior. And I know we have a limited authority as far as like what we can require of them, but are there, how much leverage do we
So
have?
when applications come in that are in the historic district, absolutely, you have
Okay.
a lot of control.
Oh, we do? Okay.
But in terms of something that made like Crowd Street, you don't have a lot of stuff there. You have some level when you mentioned aesthetic. I think Mike mentioned aesthetics and that sort of thing. But this town does not have design control as part of its zoning ordinance, so that precludes you from being able to have a huge weigh-in from that. So you need to be sensitive to that from that standpoint.
Right.
They're gonna require a demolition permit for the house that was built in 1890.
They will require a demo permit from that standpoint, but it's not in the historic district. This is a loophole in your ordinance, as a, for instance, the beautiful, one of the oldest buildings that went down right on the Bristol town line, because it's out of the historic district, you didn't have control over it.
But the town council still has to, or who issues the demolition permit?
The building.
The building official?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's pretty common, I think, in a lot of towns.
Oh, yeah,
But
that's common, but it's the concern that's rising with the historic district committee is when there is a building that's outside the district that may be of consequence, at least time-wise, that they'd like to have some jurisdiction over that. And I do find value to potentially amending the ordinance that, maybe it's, if there's a house that's over 100 years old or something like that, that at least there's a review process with a historic before it comes down to see if there's anything at least worth documenting, as a for instance.
And did we ever put in the comprehensive plan that like people could, like some people like to opt in to make that their property historic so that then it is preserved outside? Like I know in Pittsburgh you can do that, in other towns, like other areas that, so for example, the oldest house in Warren is not in the historic districts, it is on Asylum Road. And so that could get knocked down at any time and rebuilt. Luckily, the property owners have chosen to preserve it. and-
You can't opt in, but the tax credit certainly allows outside of like historic district for preservation. Then if you get the tax credits, there are some restrictions put on it, but I don't think it prevents demolition.
The other option would be to put a historic preservation easement under federal income tax.
Right. Yeah, that's.
Purview.
Yeah, that they get
But-
on the state historic register, the federal register, there are certain.
And then that would
Okay.
preserve the exterior envelope of the structure.
Which maybe it's just like educating people.
Okay.
because they would choose that.
St. Mary's is, but we'll talk about.
I've been involved with that for quite a few months. They're angry at me, but again, it's trying to keep things going in my office. You can tell from my latest monthly report, it's hard.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And by the way, I did not mean to say that, we have to do it in March, the Liberty.
No, I get that. And it's been with me for about 25 days and I have 60 to do it, but I like to get stuff done as soon as I can. This is just taking longer.
I'd also like to avoid special meetings, quite frankly. I mean, it's
It's a lot.
that's, yeah.
I'm sorry, because I'm new, is St. Mary's to make the existing condition actually be a street and a house lot?
St. Mary's is right, is a house lot, formalize what everybody believes is a street into a
It's not.
street.
Okay.
Again, they're trying to generate a little bit of revenue from the property. So the existing house that they own, that would be carved off. There would be a lot created to put in a new house there.
Oh, so they're,
So it's.
got it. Oh, that's fine.
yeah.
I'll wait to see.
Yeah, it's not a huge, basically it would be, it's the equivalent of a street creates it major automatically, right? So it has to come before you as a major because of the delineation of the street. It's just taken a lot of discussion on both sides of the coin to figure out which way to go, even though it's in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty simple project.
Okay, yeah,
Like,
so it's not.
Out of that? Just saying. What about it?
There's already I don't know whether it's written or unwritten agreement with regard to the parking lot for, it certainly is understood for emergency situations. Whether it becomes more of a permanent thing, that's a separate issue from the development. So I just, caution as part of that. And that's maybe a future discussion outside of that, but that would be between the council and the manager and them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is
All
there
right.
cheat sheets that we can get for these new laws? Because there's so many layers and it's over, I tried to read them and I'm so confused and there's like multiple that seem to contradict one another.
You talking about the new laws?
The new laws in the state,
There's
like,
definitely contradictions. It's 10 bills smattered all around the place. I can tell you, he's still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Outlines in
But-
some ways won't do you any good. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Because it's very specific and then you have to look at one area, cross check it somewhere else just to make sure that you're.
Right.
yeah, it,
And I am
It's a lot.
trying to find the blocks of time to do the amendments that are going to be necessary to our community, some of which in discussion with the solicitor, I don't want them public yet because I don't want individuals out there taking advantage of the knowledge that we have of certain things that I think would undermine our development review process.
One thing I would like to do, when you folks get a handle on it, is to ask the town council to speak out against those parts of the comprehensive permit that are directly injurious to our town. I've had conversations with individual town council members that, the same way they do a comment about gun violence or something else. I mean, this directly speaks to our town. And I think the town council needs to take a stand on the fact that we are being forced to make decisions that are not necessarily in the best interests of the town.
Understood, you know, I've heard that before, and I do think that as we work through the amendments to the land use regulations, we're trying to keep in consideration what I call the Warren character, the Warren flavor, that we're not just changing the regulations to fit the provision of affordable housing for the sake of amendments to the law, that there are things that we have to change because of that. But as part of that process, again, I want to make sure the flavor of Warren remains as part of those regulations.
I mean, I get on my phone, you know, literally with the turn of the year. I don't know if you guys get them. You get the advertisements for the granny suite developers that are like putting in these little, you can now, per Rhode Island law, build this little shack in your backyard, you know, like literally it's just automatically being sent, you know.
Yep.
My wife was like, oh, cool, we should get, I'm like,
I will point out that, for instance, at Penny Lane, the most probable tenant would be someone like my son, who works at Roger Williams University. Right. Well, or any project that has a 40 to 60 to 80% of AMI. My son works 40+ hours a week for Roger Williams University in the kitchen. He's been there for 7 years.
No,
Yeah,
I
and so-
understand that, but the city and also
This has to do with the ones that are, that literally you have a right to build a auxiliary home in your backyard, you know, and so it's just. Yes, so it's, and that was what they're advertising, these little like, you know, 600 square foot thing, build it in your house, you know, and it just sort of, it literally changes everybody's zonings.
and the character of the neighborhood.
I think that's what it is, like, we need affordability. I think affordability is good. I just wish it was, you could do it in a way that was integrated and didn't completely change things.
Smaller units, more units will increase supply and reduce the pressure on demand.
Absolutely, in the
Right.
appropriate places. You know, you look at a place like Warren, which is what I was telling that other fellow about, Ed Pimentel. You have to look at the state of Rhode Island. You don't say 10%, and that 10% figure is crazy. It's literally made up out of somebody's head, and we're being forced to it. And his argument for it didn't hold water. The idea that somehow, you're trying to keep some communities' feet to the fire. We are handcuffed. If somebody comes to us with a gigantic proposal that is not that has 25% affordability, we are going to find it very difficult to fight that off. And we've had one come before us. It's gone to court. It's now in court. I don't want that. We don't want that here. And as a planning board, if that happens, our existence is really threatened. Why are we here? Just do it. And that is what's happening with the legislators who are voting for this stuff. They're not thinking it through. They're not.
Yeah.
I'll just put out there for consideration. And I realize I'm probably at a very different end of this thought process than most of the people on this board. For instance, with the accessory dwelling units, if they were permitted and we got to our affordable component that way, then we would not be having these large projects shoehorned into, we would instead be having these more affordable units scattered throughout the town rather than concentrated in big development projects. So I put that out there.
The math is impossible. I mean, I think.
Figured it out. If we built 700 units, 53% have to be affordable. So special numbers, just tell people 53%.
Again, I think as planners, as the folks responsible for the planning, we have to look at this and say, what is our capacity as a town? And it's more than just, can we fit in the 10%? The question is, can we sustain it in terms of services too, and taxes?
I think once that the housing needs analysis comes out, you'll have more information from which to chew on, but also from which to support a fuller, a more robust discussion about affordable housing, because you'll have a truer picture of the composition in your housing stock from that standpoint. And I think will give you a level of not necessarily ammunition, but at least the ability to take the discussion out of a vacuum and put context around it.
All right,
There's a
vote,
possible proposal in Westerly, 2,300 units.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, somebody else is gonna do the dirty work. Who's gonna have money and suit, trust me, I've thought of all kinds of ways that this is gonna go horribly wrong for the state.
2,300 units.
vote to adjourn.
Vote.
All in favor?
Aye.